protective device in a lot of ways so that I could handle what was going on. I had this little glow, this little armor that I had created for myself.
What if the greatest love stories never happened at all? What if they lived only in glances, unfinished conversations, or the quiet ache of what might have been? Behind the smile of one of Hollywood's most beloved stars lies a truth far more complicated. A story shaped not by fame, but by 6 men who left their mark in ways the world never saw. Some lifted her up, others nearly broke her, and one, he still haunts her dreams. This isn't a story about romance. It's about resilience, memory, and the price of feeling deeply in a world that often demands you hide it. You think you know Sally Field, but the real story has been waiting in the silence between headlines. There's a moment when a smile can both reveal and conceal, and Sally Fields has done both for decades. But what if that light on screen masked something deeper, something she never let show? That gap between what we saw and what she lived through is exactly why you'll want to watch every second of this. From the outside, it's easy to think she lived a Hollywood fairy tale, but the truth was far more complex, and it's only now coming to life. You've always known Sally Field as America's sweetheart, warm, sincere, unforgettable. But the woman behind that charm carried silent scars. As a child, she moved between households, never quite anchored. By the time she reached stardom on Gidget and The Flying Nun, she was still the girl who hadn't learned what it felt like to be truly safe. Even as her smile lit up living rooms across the country, inside, she was living a question. Who would truly see her? That question followed her into every role and relationship. Hook. Imagine becoming an icon at just 20 and still feeling invisible. Sally confessed to Good Morning America recently that she spent her entire career wondering if anyone really understood her. And that doubt didn't just vanish with an Oscar. She's now 78 and worth around $50 million. But the money and acclaim couldn't buy what she'd spent most of her life chasing: unconditional acceptance. On screen, she played resolute characters: Norma Ray, a steelworker turned hero, a doting mother in Forrest Gump, and the world clapped. But off camera, she was still confronting shadows: instability at home. A stepfather, she later revealed, sexually abused her in her teens. She reconstructed herself through roles, but no script would bring her inner peace. Hook. What happens when even applause doesn't fill your emptiness? Her first marriage to Stephen Craig gave her 2 sons, but in interviews she's hinted that the intimacy she yearned for simply wasn't there. Audiences loved Sister Bertrill, but at home she still carried loneliness. Acting became her sanctuary, but every rescue came with an echo of isolation. That longing only deepened when the lights dimmed. Then came Burt Reynolds. Star power, charm, a partnership that Hollywood fueled as dreamlike. They seemed unstoppable. Smokey and the Bandit was a box office hit, their chemistry impossible to deny. But behind the velvet curtains, a power struggle emerged. Hook. What if the man you love reshapes you into someone else? That's exactly what happened. Reynolds, confident and controlling, sidelined Sally's thoughts, her ambitions, her voice. She remembers feeling smaller, laughing when expected, hiding parts of herself just to make the relationship last. He was protective and affectionate, but that kindness twisted into dismissal. He'd downplay her awards, overshadow her opinions, and impose expectations that left her shrinking. Still, she stayed, because she truly believed this time she might be seen. And after they split, she said, "He remained a piece of my heart I could never quite shake." Not a fling, not a friend, something deeper, an imprint. Hook. What remains when heartbreak ends? For Sally, a lingering question mark. But it's impossible to tell her story starting there. Her first true love, the one who came before the cameras, was Stephen Craig. They married young, literally before the spotlight fully embraced her. He was familiar, safe, an anchor in an unpredictable world. Hook. What happens when comfort meets ambition? The answer would shape everything she became. Their marriage brought her children, but it didn't bring solace. The lessons she carried forward from that time about love, power, and self-worth would echo in every step she took after. By the late 1970s, she was reinventing herself. Intense studying at the Actors Studio, a breakthrough in Sybil, an Oscar in Norma Ray, and yet the internal void stayed. She became a producer, directed episodes of ER, and starred in Brothers and Sisters, earning both acclaim and $200,000 per episode. These achievements should have filled her with confidence, but that nagging thought persisted. Am I enough? Even now, she quietly battles osteoporosis, a condition she's faced with poise, sharing how it led her to campaign for bone health after her diagnosis in 2005. She's embraced aging without apology, refusing cosmetic changes and challenging societal standards around beauty and age. Hook. At 76, she refused to erase the lines of time, and in doing so, she redefined what true grace looks like. Her recent reflections are raw and compelling. In a Good Morning America interview just 5 days ago, she confessed who those 6 men really were, and what she truly felt for each of them. Now, finally, she's peeling back layers most of us never imagined existed. There's real power in watching someone rebuild themselves in real time. She's no longer smiling to fit expectations. She's embracing the woman she became, with every scar, triumph, and lesson. That's what makes her story so compelling now. Decades after Hollywood first wrote her name across marquees, she's telling it herself, and this time, on her terms. So here's the truth. This isn't just a biography. It's a reckoning, a rebirth. A woman who gathered every fragment of her heart and dared to show it. Part 1 of this journey sets the stage, but the real revelation is coming next. How a string of powerful men shaped her, and how she found the courage to keep living, no matter what. She was just 19 when she said, "I do." But that marriage to Stephen Craig wasn't the fairy tale it seemed. He was steady, reliable, the safe harbor in a life that had been anything but. But here's the hook. Sally later admitted she said yes out of fear, not love. She wanted security more than passion, yet stability felt like a gilded cage. While she baked pies and helped raise their 2 boys, the spark inside her dimmed. She fulfilled the role of devoted wife and mother. But at night, she lay awake, wondering if being enough meant losing herself. That question haunted her more than any public spotlight. He was supportive, yet emotionally distant. He tolerated her rising fame without celebration. Every red carpet she walked, she felt more invisible at home. The empty space between them stirred relentless curiosity. Was this really what love looked like? Their divorce brought guilt and liberation entwined. Guilt for ending their family, exhilaration at reclaiming a piece of her identity. Stephen was her first love, the man who fathered her children, and the man whose shadow lingered long after they parted. Then came James Garner. No drama, no headlines, just connection. Working on Murphy's romance, chemistry between them was palpable, not just on screen but in stolen glances and quiet laughter. Sally described him recently as someone who saw past her Hollywood facade. That's not something you forget. He didn't dazzle, he grounded her. He made her forget the need to perform. Yet timing can be a cruel writer. He remained devoted to his wife, unshakable in integrity. Their bond was profound, unspoken, and bittersweet. A heartfelt what if that never unfolded. That unanswered question sparked something deeper in her soul. Could a love so steady, so real, ever have changed everything? That lingering possibility still whispers in her memory. Casting for Murphy's romance was no accident. Sally had formed her own production company, Fogwood Films, and she championed Garner for the role, even when the studio balked. Their kiss in the film? She said it was the best she's ever had on camera. Fans still swoon. Reddit threads still celebrate it. When Garner kissed her, she got weak in the knees and had to sit down. That chemistry wasn't manufactured. It felt real, raw. It left audiences yearning for more, wondering if their love story existed off-screen too. But then the narrative takes a sharper turn. She wasn't prepared for what came next. Dustin Hoffman. He never stood alongside her in a film, but he left an indelible emotional bruise. In an audition for a project that never reached cinemas, she encountered him, and the memory still stings. He was dominating the room with his reputation, slicing through her lines, mocking her in ways that felt personal. It wasn't playful banter. It was a display of power meant to remind her who held the control. The producers chuckled. Sally didn't. It wasn't rejection. It was humiliation, and she carried it like a scar. Hook. What happens when vulnerability meets predatory arrogance? For her, it triggered a realization that some wounds can't be healed with fame or applause. They linger. They define shapes of resilience. She never spoke of it publicly. Until now. She described him years later as brilliant but belittling, a man whose presence reminded her how fragile success could feel. That audition room became more than a failed scene. It became a lesson in double standards and imbalance in Hollywood. There was no romance here, no missing pages in a love story, just control, and the reminder she'd never shrink to fit someone else's mold again. Through all this, first love, unspoken connection, humiliating power plays, she learned. Those early chapters shaped her boundaries, her fight for respect. They propelled her into breakout roles in Norma Ray and Places in the Heart, where she became more than an actress. She became a force. But even then, every flash of applause came with an echo of those past equals and the questions they raised. Today, at 78, she reflects differently. She's said on podcasts that she's never been good at picking a partner and can't imagine saying "I do" again unless someone holds her more than 37 seconds. She's fiercely proud of her sons, Peter, Eli, and Sam, whose successes as writers, directors, and advocates bring her the fulfillment she never found in romantic love alone. But those 6 men, the safe anchor, the gentle connection, the scarred audition, still echo in her heart. Their influence lingers in the choices she made, the roles she took, and the life she built. She walked out of that audition room with a question echoing in her mind. Was she talentless, or just in the wrong story? That moment reignited doubts she thought she'd buried. It wasn't love that left a mark, but its absence, an imprint sharper than any affection. This was the pain she carried quietly, a wound that took decades to surface. Then came someone whose impact was gentler, but no less profound. On the set of Forrest Gump, she worked alongside Tom Hanks, playing his mother despite being only 10 years older. Their scenes crackled with warmth, but it wasn't just love for a character. It felt real. In interviews, She's described his presence as something rare. Genuine kindness without expectation, humor without cruelty. He listened. He respected her boundaries. In a town full of egos, he never shrank hers. That connection, quiet, unassuming, but deeply felt, is described by people close to them as unusually intimate. Hook. What if the most powerful bond isn't romantic at all, but built on mutual understanding? For Sally, Tom Hanks represented the possibility of love without sacrifice. Yet even that gentle bond left her with a what if. She never confirmed a romance, but hinted at something more profound than most expect from Hollywood partnerships. Their friendship became a memory she treasures for its purity. Not thunder, but a soft echo that still warms her heart. But it's Marlon Brando who remains her most shocking regret. Before they even met, he was a legend to her. The raw force of nature, untamed, brilliant. She was drawn to chaos, but also afraid of losing herself in it. When their paths crossed, the air shifted. He was magnetic, soft-spoken one moment, dismissive the next, charisma laced with distance. Hook. Can you chase a myth and lose yourself in the process? With Brando, she flirted with that danger. Their relationship was a storm that never landed, charged with electricity, but impossible to hold. She later confessed he was the storm I wanted to be swept away by, but I would have drowned. Even now, she says his ghost visits her dreams. That unfulfilled passion shaped the woman she became. Yearning, wise, alive to the fragility of longing. Now, at 78, Sally Field doesn't linger in bitterness. She stands proud of her scars. The 6 men who shaped her life each taught her something about love, self-worth, vulnerability, and resilience. Some she loved, some she lost, some never loved her back. Together they carved the emotional terrain she navigated professionally and personally. Watching her tell this story now, decades in, is witnessing a transformation in real time. A woman who finally owns every part of herself, the tender and the torn. She was only 19 when she married Stephen Craig, fresh out of high school, trying to escape uncertainty with something stable. He was kind, dependable, a friendlier route than the chaos she'd known, but this stability came at a cost. Sally later admitted she married out of fear, not passion. She cradled that uneasy choice like a lifeline. At home, she baked, raised their 2 boys, and carried on a devotion that filled her days. But at night, she often lay awake, wondering if love was supposed to feel so empty. That persistent question quietly tugged at her. What if fulfillment demands more than comfort? T.S. Stephen tried. He wasn't cruel, just distant, unable to celebrate her growing ambitions. Every award she won, every standing ovation she received, he watched it from afar. Hook. Was she meant to fade more into the background with each spotlight she received? She felt invisible at home, even as the world adored her. When their marriage ended, relief and guilt came in unexpected waves. She mourned the family that could have been, yet she also recognized freedom had arrived. Stephen was her first love, the man who framed the mother she'd become, and his influence lingered in every choice she made afterward. As we close this journey of her heart, there's another layer to explore. Who is Sally Field today? In terms not just of emotion, but of empire. Her net worth is estimated at around $55 million. That wealth isn't just from ticket sales. It's built on smart choices. She leveraged television success, earning up to $200,000 per episode on Brothers and Sisters, into broader roles, directing gigs, and producing credits that continue into the recent past, including HBO's Winning Time. She's invested in real estate with the slow burn savvy of someone who's learned patience. After selling a Malibu estate for about $5.5 million, she bought a Pacific Palisades property for roughly $2.3 million. She's leaned into her health journey. After her osteoporosis diagnosis in 2005, she became a vocal advocate for bone wellness and insured herself with policies on voice, mobility, and career continuity. Luxury plays a part too. While she's known for her preference for authenticity over ostentation, reports suggest her car collection includes understated classics, reflecting her timeless taste. Think elegant sedans rather than flashy sports cars. She has been spotted with high-end watches, subtle pieces that valuing punctuality as much as prestige. No private jet, but her investments in entertainment have taken her around the world without boarding her own aircraft. She's had smart brand deals, voiceovers, appearances, public service campaigns, not flashy, but consistent. And her business mindset is quietly savvy, producing credits, a memoir that debuted on bestseller lists, and roles that showcase her depth rather than her age. Those decisions reflect a celebrity who sees longevity as a strategy, not a miracle. From teenage instability to an empire of empathy and resilience, Sally's journey teaches financial and personal lessons. First, your worth is built over decades, not overnight. Second, vulnerability can become your greatest strength in building trust and legacy. And third, diversification, whether in relationships, roles, or investments, is key to sustaining influence and income into your later years. She has taught us what it means to age with purpose, to forge wisdom from heartbreak and stature from struggle. The world loved her on screen. Now she's teaching us to love ourselves off screen. That is her final gift. So here's the real question to leave you with. How does a woman whose heart was broken 6 times become unbreakable? That's the story worth asking, and it's one that's still unfolding. Sally Field's life wasn't written by Hollywood. It was rewritten by the moments that never made the final cut. She loved boldly, lost quietly, and survived the kind of emotional turbulence that never made the tabloids. Through every heartbreak, she built something stronger than fame: perspective. These 6 men weren't just footnotes in her story. They were lessons, warnings, and mirrors. And yet, her legacy isn't defined by who she loved, but how she kept loving anyway. If this story moved you, let us know which moment struck deepest in the comments. Tap like if you felt the weight of her journey, and subscribe if you want more untold Hollywood stories, just like this one. Because in a world of scripted endings, Sally Field reminds us, sometimes the truth is the most unforgettable performance of all.